You wake up in the morning feeling like the same person you were yesterday. Your hands still move the same way. Your voice still sounds like yours. Your reflection, at least at first glance, seems familiar enough to trust. And yet beneath that smooth illusion of continuity, trillions of cells are working inside you with a kind of desperate discipline, holding together a living system that is constantly under attack from the simple fact that it exists. That is the strange truth at the center of your body. Life does not sit peacefully inside you. It defends itself. Every second, your cells are repairing damaged DNA, clearing toxic waste, folding proteins back into shape, breaking apart what no longer works, and replacing what can still be replaced. They are not maintaining perfection. They are postponing collapse. From the outside, the body feels stable. It feels like a finished thing, a solid structure, a self. But from the inside, it is closer to a city under endless siege, rebuilding bridges while roads crack, patching walls while supplies run low, keeping the lights on while small failures multiply in quiet places no one can see. What you experience as health is not the absence of damage. It is the temporary success of repair. And that is where the real unease begins. Because this is not a war your cells are expected to win. They can slow the damage. They can manage it. They can adapt around it for years, even decades. But they cannot permanently escape it. The same chemistry that gives them energy also produces harmful byproducts. The same replication that allows growth also creates mistakes. The same metabolism that keeps you alive is, in another sense, grinding away at the machinery of life from within. So aging is not a sudden event that arrives one day from the outside. It is the visible surface of a conflict that has been unfolding since the beginning. Long before your skin changed, long before your energy shifted, long before your memory began to hesitate, the battle was already underway at a scale too small to feel and too constant to stop. What makes this so unsettling is not just that your cells are losing. It is that they were never designed for final victory. They were built to resist, to recover, to endure for a while. And for a while is exactly what life gives them. To understand why that fight was always unequal, we first have to understand what your cells are actually trying to hold together in the first place. To see why this war becomes unwinnable, you have to begin with something even stranger. What your cells are defending is not a hard object, but a fragile pattern. Your body feels solid because your senses compress billions of microscopic events into one stable experience. But at the cellular level, stability is something being produced every moment, not something that simply exists on its own. A cell is not just a tiny blob of living material. It is more like a crowded, self-regulating factory, power station, recycling center, repair shop, border checkpoint, and instruction archive all at once. It must generate energy, control what enters and leaves, build useful molecules, break down dangerous ones, and follow encoded instructions without losing the larger order that makes life possible. Every second, it is deciding what to keep, what to destroy, what to rebuild, and what to ignore until there is enough energy to deal with it later. That matters because the true enemy is not just one dramatic threat. It is disorder. Left alone, the chemistry of life does not stay neat, balanced, and functional. Proteins misfold. DNA is struck by radiation and chemical stress. Waste products accumulate. Membranes weaken. Signals misfire. Energy systems become less efficient. The natural direction of the material world is not toward organized life, but away from it. Your cells survive by pushing against that direction again and again. This is why your body is far less like a machine than most people imagine. A machine can sit still in a room and remain mostly unchanged. A living body cannot. If your cells stopped working for even a short time, the order you call you would begin to come apart. The body only appears durable because constant labor is hidden beneath the appearance of ease. The calm surface of life is bought by nonstop microscopic effort. And the effort is astonishing. Cells detect breaks in DNA and rush proteins to the scene like emergency crews arriving at a damaged bridge. They inspect newly made proteins and destroy the flawed ones before those errors spread. They package waste, neutralize reactive molecules, and trigger self-destruction when a cell becomes too damaged to trust. Even now, while you are reading this, cells in your skin, blood, gut, and immune system are performing thousands of corrections that you will never notice. The remarkable thing is that cells are not simply obeying chemistry. They are organizing chemistry into persistence. They maintain gradients, timing, rhythm, separation, and memory. They keep the inside different from the outside. They preserve instructions while spending energy to prevent those instructions from being corrupted. In other words, they are defending difference itself, because life depends on not dissolving into the surrounding world. That is why even ordinary existence is so biologically expensive. To stay alive is not to coast. It is to continuously pay for order with work, energy, vigilance, and sacrifice every day. So when we talk about survival, we are not really talking about a body being built once and then preserved. We are talking about a living pattern being defended against collapse, moment by moment, by countless tiny systems that never fully rest. What feels to you like a single, continuous self is actually a managed state of order. And that is the deeper contrast. We imagine life as something naturally whole that later breaks down. But your cells reveal the opposite truth. Breakdown is always close, and wholeness is the temporary achievement. Once you see that clearly, the next question becomes unavoidable. If life demands this much effort just to remain itself, what happens when repair can no longer keep pace with damage? That is where the real imbalance reveals itself. Your cells are incredibly skilled at repair, but they are repairing inside a system that produces fresh damage simply by functioning. The battle was never fair because the body does not fight decay from a safe distance. It fights from within the very chemistry that generates decay in the first place. Start with energy. Every cell needs it. Without energy, nothing can be repaired, replaced, transported, or defended. But the process that gives cells usable energy, especially inside mitochondria, also creates reactive byproducts that can damage proteins, lipids, and DNA. The fuel that powers life leaves microscopic scars behind. Your cells can clean up many of them, but not all of them, and not forever. Survival carries a cost. The fire that keeps the house warm also leaves smoke in the walls. Then there is replication. Life continues because cells divide, copy their DNA, and pass instructions forward. But copying is never perfectly clean. Errors slip in. Some are harmless. Some are corrected. Some become mutations that stay. Over time, those small mistakes accumulate across trillions of cells. Most never become dramatic enough to notice immediately, yet they still add noise to systems that depend on precision. The body can tolerate a surprising amount of noise, but tolerance is not victory. Even repair has limits built into it. When DNA breaks, the cell can often patch it. When proteins misfold, the cell can refold or destroy them. When components wear down, they can sometimes be recycled. But repair is not restoration to some untouched original state. It is often approximation under pressure. The cell is constantly choosing between speed, energy cost, and accuracy. Sometimes good enough is the only option available. Sometimes partial repair is better than no repair. This is where people often imagine the body is stronger than it really is. We think healing means reversal. In reality, healing often means management. A cut closes, but the tissue is not exactly what it was before. A damaged molecule is replaced, but the larger environment may still be more chaotic than it was yesterday. The body survives by absorbing imperfections, not by erasing them completely. That means the history of damage never truly disappears. It becomes part of the system the next day must inherit. There are also built-in biological clocks that make the problem harder. Every time many cells divide, the protective caps on chromosomes, called telomeres, tend to shorten. Cells have ways of slowing this process, and some cell types manage it better than others, but the pattern remains. Repeated division carries a countdown inside it. Renewal is real, but renewal is not infinite. And then there is senescence, one of the strangest compromises in biology. When certain cells become too damaged or too risky to keep dividing, they may stop dividing altogether. On one level, this protects the body, because a badly damaged cell that keeps dividing could become cancerous. But senescent cells do not always disappear quietly. Some linger. Some release inflammatory signals. Some alter the tissue around them. What began as protection can gradually become another source of decline. Cancer itself reveals how unfair the battle is. The systems that keep cells alive and able to divide are necessary for life. But those same systems, when misregulated, can produce cells that ignore the rules of the organism and pursue survival at the level of the cell alone. Life must allow growth, but growth creates risk. It must allow repair, but repair requires replication. The traits that make life possible also make breakdown possible. All of this unfolds under the larger rule of entropy, the tendency for ordered systems to drift toward disorder unless energy is continually spent to maintain them. A living body is not exempt from that rule. It is an astonishing local rebellion against it. But rebellion is not escape. To remain alive, cells must pour energy into holding shape, timing, structure, and function together. So the battle was always unfair in the deepest possible way. Cells are asked to preserve a complex order using tools that wear down as they work. They are asked to copy instructions without error using chemistry that is noisy and unstable. They are asked to defend the organism by making trade-offs that solve one danger while quietly creating another. They can delay collapse with extraordinary ingenuity, but delay is not defeat. That is the hardest truth in the biology of aging. Your cells are not failing because they are careless. They are failing because life is built on compromises that become more expensive over time. The body does not lose because it stops fighting. It loses because fighting itself leaves marks over decades. And once enough of those marks accumulate, the microscopic battle stops being invisible. It begins to surface in the things we call human aging. That is the moment when biology becomes personal. For years, the body can hide the cost of this internal struggle so well that life feels permanent. You heal, recover, grow, adapt, and move through the world with the assumption that your body is on your side. But what you call aging is the point where the hidden arithmetic of cellular damage begins to show itself on the surface. It appears first in small betrayals. A wound takes longer to close. A night without sleep costs more than it used to. Recovery after illness slows. Muscles do not answer as quickly. Skin loses some of its firmness. Memory stops feeling like an open room and starts feeling like a house with certain lights dimming earlier than expected. None of this arrives as one dramatic collapse. It arrives as accumulation made visible. That is why aging feels so strange from the inside. The self remains continuous. You still feel like you. Your thoughts still gather around the same center. But the machinery supporting that sense of continuity is less forgiving than it once was. The body is still performing miracles, only now with less margin, less speed, and fewer recoveries. Youth often feels effortless not because the body is unbreakable, but because repair still outruns damage by enough to preserve the illusion of abundance. Eventually, that balance changes. The same cut heals, but slower. The same stress leaves a deeper mark. The same infection demands more energy. Tissues that once renewed themselves with ease begin to show wear. Stem cell reserves become less effective. Chronic inflammation becomes more likely. The background noise of damage, which once remained below perception, rises just high enough to enter daily life. You do not merely get older. You begin to feel the cost of maintenance. This is what makes aging different from simple damage. A broken bone is an event. Aging is a shift in the relationship between damage and repair across the whole system. It is the moment when the body can still fight, but cannot restore the field as completely as before. Each victory becomes smaller. Each compromise lasts longer. Function remains, but resilience narrows. And that narrowing changes more than appearance. It changes confidence. A younger body often moves through the world assuming recovery. An older body becomes more aware of consequence. One missed night, one fall, one illness, one season of stress can echo more loudly than it once did. The body does not just weaken in strength. It weakens in forgiveness. There is something heartbreaking about that. Not only because features change or energy declines, but because aging reveals that what felt stable was always a temporary negotiation. Your face, your speed, your stamina, your sharpness, even your voice are not fixed possessions. They are living outcomes produced by systems that have been paying a price for your continuity all along. This is why aging alters your relationship with time itself. In youth, the future can feel wide because the body seems able to absorb almost anything. Later, time feels sharper, not only emotionally but biologically. The body becomes a record of what it has survived, and survival starts to feel less abstract, more finite, more earned. And yet this is why aging carries such emotional force. It makes visible what life really is, not a permanent state, but an active resistance. Every year your body holds together is not trivial. It is earned. Every healed wound, every recovered illness, every ordinary morning in which your heart beats, your lungs rise, your eyes focus, and your mind gathers itself is the result of countless cellular acts of endurance. The tragedy is real, but so is the achievement. Seen this way, aging is not simply the body failing. It is the body revealing the terms under which it always worked. The signs of getting older are not random insults from time. They are the visible record of a long negotiation with entropy, stress, mutation, and wear. They are what microscopic losses look like when translated into a human life. And once you see that, the question changes. The mystery is no longer why aging happens. The deeper question is how anything as fragile as life manages to resist for so long at all. And that may be the strangest comfort hidden inside this whole story. Your cells are losing a war they were never meant to win, and yet they keep fighting anyway. Not blindly, not heroically in any human sense. Simply through the quiet, relentless logic of life itself. They repair what they can. They remove what they must. They adapt, ration, replace, contain, and endure. For years, then decades, they keep pushing back against a universe that does not naturally favor delicate patterns of order. It is easy to hear that and slip into despair, to treat aging as nothing more than a long defeat. But that misses the deeper truth. The wonder of life was never that it could become permanent. The wonder is that something this vulnerable can last at all. A living body is made of matter that should scatter, chemistry that should drift, structures that should weaken, instructions that should blur. And still, for a time, it holds. It keeps coherence. It keeps memory. It keeps warmth in the blood and language in the mouth and intention in the mind. That is not a small thing. It is one of the most improbable achievements in the known universe. We often imagine meaning as something connected to permanence. We think what matters should last, what matters should stay. But biology suggests something harsher and more beautiful. Maybe value does not come from escaping time. Maybe it comes from standing inside time, knowing the cost, and continuing anyway. Every living thing is temporary, but temporary does not mean trivial. In some ways, it means the opposite. A song matters because it ends. A season matters because it passes. A life matters because it is not endlessly renewable. Your cells understand this in the only way biology can understand anything, through action. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They do not postpone repair until the universe becomes kinder. They spend energy now. They preserve what can still be preserved now. They fight for another hour of structure, another day of function, another year of continuity. They are not building eternity. They are building enough. That endurance, repeated across trillions of cells, is what makes ordinary existence feel effortless from inside. And perhaps that is the dignity in all of this. Not that the body defeats decay, but that it resists decay with astonishing discipline for so long. Not that life escapes fragility, but that fragility does not prevent life from becoming vivid, conscious, loving, curious, and aware of its own limits. The body does not solve the problem of time. It turns borrowed time into experience. So when you look at aging only as loss, you miss half the picture. Yes, it is loss. Yes, it is evidence that repair cannot outrun damage forever. But it is also proof that for years beyond counting, countless cells cooperated well enough to make a person, a voice, a memory, a self that could ask questions about its own existence. Out of molecular noise came reflection. Out of chemistry came grief, wonder, humor, fear, attachment, and love. That, too, is part of the story. Your cells were never meant to win in the final sense. But maybe winning was never the point. Maybe the point was to hold the line long enough for consciousness to appear, for meaning to take shape, for one brief and astonishing life to happen at all. And if that is true, then the real mystery is not that the body eventually loses. The real mystery is that something so fragile fights hard enough to become you.